The night Paul pressed me against the study wall, whispering promises he thought I would forget by morning, I almost laughed. He had no idea I would remember every lie. I had started wearing the mask of fragility 6 months ago, after the funeral. My husband, Richard, left me everything: the Manhattan penthouse, the vineyards, the fortune. His children, Monica and Paul, arrived with syrupy condolences and eyes sharp as tax auditors. They called me Eleanor now, not Mom. I saw their greed coiled beneath their tears, waiting to strike. So I let them see tremors in my hands. Let them catch me staring blankly at Richard's portrait. Let them whisper, "Early dementia," the doctor said. It worked. Paul came first. At 26, he had inherited Richard's ruthlessness but not his discipline. He brought me lilies. Your favorite, right? They weren't. And lingered after dinner, fingers brushing mine as he cleared plates. You shouldn't be alone here, he murmured. Monica, sharper, played the devoted daughter. She would kneel by my chair, her honey blonde hair spilling over my lap, and sigh. I miss Dad too. But we have each other. Her nails dug into my wrist when she said, we. That night in the study, Paul's cologne, too sweet, nothing like Richard's, clung to me. Let me take care of you, he said, lips grazing my neck. I feigned confusion, tilting my head. Richard? He is gone, Eleanor. His hand slid to my waist. But I am here. I let him kiss me, once brief, before pulling away, murmuring, the tulips need water, and shuffling out. Monica stood in the hallway, wineglass in hand. Her smile froze. So it begins. Monica came to me that night, her cheeks flushed with Cabernet and spite. It was past midnight when she slipped into my bedroom, her silk robe shimmering like a knife in the dark. Eleanor? Her voice quivered, a perfect imitation of concern. I heard noises. Are you okay? I sat up, clutching the sheets to my chest, the frail widow, startled by shadows. Monica? Is that you, darling? She perched on the edge of my bed, the scent of bitter grapes on her breath. I am worried about Paul, she whispered, tears glistening. He is. Using you. After everything Dad did for him. Her hand gripped mine, cold and urgent. He has always been jealous. Even of me. I tilted my head, slow and vacant. Paul. The tulips? No. Listen. She leaned closer, her hair a golden curtain shielding us from the imaginary world. He is not who you think. Last week, I saw him on the phone with some lawyer, not Mark. He is planning something. I widened my eyes. A lawyer? But your father is gone. She hesitated, then pressed a vial of pills into my palm. Your medication. Hide it. He might try to add just the dosage. Her tears fell now, warm and practiced. I just want to protect you. I pocketed the vial, nodding like a child handed a secret. 2 days later, I wandered into Paul's room, muttering about misplaced scarves. His laptop glowed on the desk, unlocked. I clicked through files labeled Vineyard Taxes until I found it. Final willed PDF. Richard's signature, shaky but familiar, graced the bottom. Only now, the beneficiary read Paul Alexander Grant, not Eleanor Marie Grant. The date? 3 days after Richard's death. My chest tightened, not from grief, but fury. Forged. And poorly. Richard's hands had trembled from Parkinson's, not old age. This signature was a steady fraud. Footsteps thudded in the hall. I closed the laptop, clutching a cashmere scarf to my chest. Paul froze in the doorway. Eleanor? What are you doing? Your father. He loved this one. I held up the scarf, my voice gauzy. He softened, stepping closer. Let me help you. His fingers brushed mine, lingering. I let him. That evening, Monica found me in the garden, deadheading roses. Did you hide the pills? She asked, too sweet. Pills? I blinked. She sighed, then knelt, her hands muddying her designer jeans. You're so fragile lately. Her thumb stroked my wrist. But I will take care of you. Better than he ever could. Her lips met mine, soft, insistent, a claim staked. I pulled back, touching my mouth. Monica? She stood, smirking. Rest, Eleanor. You're overwhelmed. As she left, I wiped my lips with the back of my hand. 2 snakes, One nest. But which one would strike first? I discovered Paul's forged will and shared an unexpected kiss with Monica, realizing both siblings are more dangerous and desperate than I imagined. David arrived on a Thursday, his smile sharp enough to cut glass. I was in the sunroom, pretending to doze over a photo album, when I heard his voice in the foyer, smooth, loud, and laced with false warmth. "Where is Eleanor? I heard she's not herself these days." Monica's reply was ice. "She is resting. Unlike you, some of us actually care about her health." I kept my breathing slow, my eyelids heavy, but my pulse quickened. Richard had rarely spoken of his eldest son. "David is a gambler," he had once said. "Not with cards. With people." When he walked in, he looked nothing like the grainy college photos in Richard's office. At 28, he was all lean muscle and calculated charm, his dark hair swept back like a movie villain. He crouched beside my chair, his cologne smoky and unfamiliar. "Eleanor. God, you're just how Dad described." I blinked slowly. "Richard?" His grin tightened. "No. David." He paused, studying me. "You know, Dad always said you were the smartest person he had ever met." I let my gaze drift to the window. "The roses. They are thirsty." He followed my stare, then plucked a withered petal from the floor. "Funny. The housekeeper waters them every morning." His eyes flicked back to me. "But I guess you wouldn't remember that." Dinner was a war zone. Monica and Paul sat stiff as mannequins, picking at their steak. David held court, swirling his wine like he owned the cellar. "So, Polly," he said, "Monica tells me you've been comforting Eleanor." "How noble." Paul's knife screeched against the plate. "Someone has to." "And you, sis?" David leaned back, smirking. "Playing nurse? Doesn't suit you." Monica's knuckles whitened around her fork. "We are family. Unlike you." David laughed, but his gaze slid to me. I kept my face slack, my fingers trembling as I reached for my water. He watched the glass shake in my hand. 3 a.m. I crept to the kitchen, craving silence and scotch. The safe behind the pantry held Richard's emergency cash, my real medication, and a burner phone. I had just dialed Mark's number when a floorboard creaked. "Need help, Eleanor?" David stood in the doorway, holding Monica's vial of pills. I clutched my robe, feigning confusion. "The tulips. Cut the act." He stepped closer, rolling the vial between his fingers. "I found these in your nightstand. Lorazepam. For anxiety, right? Not dementia." His smile turned wolfish. "But Monica thinks they're your special medication." "Why is she lying?" I swayed, gripping the counter. "I don't remember." He crowded me against the fridge, his voice a low growl. "You're not sick. But they don't know that, do they?" My mind raced. Too close. Too smart. I let a tear fall. "David. Please. Your father." "My father is dead." His thumb brushed my cheek, catching the tear. "But you're very much alive. And playing a very dangerous game." He dropped the vial into my palm. "Sleep well, Eleanor." As he left, I slid to the floor, the cold tiles biting through my robe. He knows. But what did he want? David exposes my ruse but keeps my secret, leaving me to wonder if he's an ally, a blackmailer, or a predator playing a longer game. The morning after David's threat, I called Mark. His voice crackled through the burner phone, steady and familiar. "You're playing with fire, Eleanor." "I need you to burn them first," I said, watching the sunrise bleed over Manhattan. "Meet me at the boathouse." Noon. Richard's old rowing lodge, tucked deep in the estate's woods, smelled of mildew and memories. Mark arrived in a charcoal suit, his silver hair combed back like a man allergic to chaos. He had been Richard's lawyer for 20 years, and the only man I trusted to keep my secrets. "David knows," I said, tossing him a flash drive of Paul's forged will. "But he hasn't told the others yet." Mark skimmed the document, his jaw tightening. "This signature's a joke. Even a rookie could spot it." He pulled a tablet from his briefcase. "But this might help." Security footage lit the screen. Last night's recording, David cornering Paul in the garage, his hand vice-gripping Paul's shoulder. "You think forging dads will make you the heir?" David sneered. "I have got copies. Hand over the vineyard deeds, or I will show Eleanor how you tried to steal her future. Paul's face paled. She's too senile to understand. Is she? David's laugh was cold. Either way, you lose. Mark paused the video. David's blackmailing Paul to get control. But why? He wants leverage, I said. Over all of us. Monica found me in the library that afternoon, her hands shaking as she offered chamomile tea. You look tense, she said, too brightly. I sipped, hiding a flinch. The tea tasted bitter, metallic, wrong. Paul's leaving, she blurted. David's bullying him. But I will stay. With you. Always. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. I set the cup down, clutching my throat. Monica. My chest. Her breath hitched. What's wrong? I slumped forward, gasping. Act. Convince. I will get help. She bolted, heels clattering down the hall. I spat the tea into a potted fern, my heart thrashing. Poison? Or a test? I staggered to the kitchen, dumping the cup's contents down the drain. But the room tilted. My vision blurred. No, I barely drank any. Unless. The burner phone rang. Mark's name flashed. I answered, sliding to the floor. Eleanor, the lab analyzed the pills Monica gave you, he said. They're not lorazepam. They're cyanide tablets. The world went black. I collapsed, unsure if Monica's poison was real or a placebo, and whether David's blackmail or Paul's desperation will finish me first. The last thing I heard before the darkness swallowed me was Monica's shrill scream. She's dying. Do something. I let them panic. Let them argue over my limp body. Let David curse, Paul hyperventilate, and Monica sob, it wasn't me. As Mark arrived with a fake EMT team, our final chess move. When I woke in the hospital, a private suite I had booked weeks ago, Mark handed me a folder. All three bit the bait. David tried to bribe a nurse to declare you incompetent. Paul offered the forged will to a probate judge. And Monica. He grimaced. She bought more cyanide. I smoothed my silk gown. Invite them to dinner. All of them. They arrived like vultures circling a carcass. Monica wore black, her eyes red raw. Paul's tie was crooked, his breath reeking of gin. David leaned against the doorway, smirking. Back from the dead, Eleanor? How miraculous. I raised my wineglass. Sit. Let us discuss your inheritance. Monica flinched. Inheritance? You're better? Thanks to you. I tapped my tablet. The room screens lit up, playing their greatest hits, Paul forging the will. David blackmailing him. Monica crushing cyanide into my tea. Paul shot to his feet. That's illegal surveillance. So is forgery, Mark said, stepping from the shadows. And attempted murder. David laughed, clapping slowly. Bravo, Eleanor. But you forgot one thing. He tossed a flash drive on the table. Footage of you faking dementia. Blackmailing us. Who is the criminal now? I sipped my wine. Check the date. He froze. The video played, a timestamp from yesterday, showing David planting the same flash drive in my desk. You stole blank drives from my office, I said. I let you. David's smirk died. Mark distributed new wills. Richard's real last testament, leaving everything to me, and a fresh addendum, disinheriting all three. Monica crumpled. You can't do this. I am your daughter. You tried to kill me. Paul lunged, wild-eyed. I loved you. You loved the vineyards. The penthouse. The money. I stood, staring down at them. Your father's blood runs in your veins, but his heart? That was always mine. David stood, smooth as smoke. This isn't over. It is. I nodded to Mark, who dialed 911. David bolted. Let him run, the cops would find him. Monica and Paul begged as sirens wailed. Please, Eleanor. We are family. I turned to Richard's portrait, lifting my glass. To family. May they rot in peace. Now, alone in the penthouse, I traced the rim of Richard's favorite whiskey tumbler. The police took the children. The press calls me a genius, a monster, a survivor. Let them. Greed is a fire, and I let it burn them all. But some nights, I wonder, when the masks came off, did any of us ever really win? And that, darlings, is why you never underestimate a widow with a sharp mind and sharper lawyer. If you enjoyed watching these fools destroy themselves, like, share, and subscribe. After all, greed isn't just a sin, it is excellent entertainment. Subscribe for more thrilling stories. Turn on notifications so you never miss a chapter of drama.